My brother promised he'd take care of our parents. Go live your life, he said. But years later, I found out he sold their house and left them in a nursing home. Alone. Now he wants my help, and he's desperate. When my brother Ethan told me, go live your life, I'll take care of mom and dad, I believed him. It was the spring after my college graduation. I had just landed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a full scholarship for a master's program in London. I hesitated, though. Our parents weren't getting any younger. Dad had started forgetting things. Mom's arthritis had gotten worse. I was torn between ambition and responsibility. But Ethan, my older brother, always the dependable one, insisted. You've worked so hard. You deserve this, he said. Let me stay. I'll be here for them. That's what family does. He hugged me at the airport, told me not to worry, and promised to keep me updated. And for the first few months, he did. Weekly emails. A couple of video calls. Pictures of dad gardening, mom smiling over her knitting. Everything seemed okay. Then the updates slowed down. I figured life got busy. Mine did too, papers, internships, exams, the chaos of settling into a new country. I called when I could. Sometimes he answered. Sometimes he didn't. When I asked if I should fly back for the holidays, he said, they're good. We'll Zoom. Focus on your studies. And so I did. 1 year turned into 3. Then 5. I finished school, got a job in the UK, met someone, moved in with her. Life moved on. I sent gifts for birthdays, cards at Christmas. I even offered to fly them out to visit, but Ethan always had a reason why they couldn't make it. Flights are too hard on Dad. Mom's knees won't handle all the walking. They're happier here. I trusted him. Until one day, 6 years later, I got a message from an old neighbor, Mrs. Fenley. Sweet woman. Used to bake us cookies every Halloween. Her message was short. Hi Jack. I hope this doesn't alarm you, but I just wanted to ask, did your parents move? Their house was sold last year, and I haven't seen them since. I thought maybe they moved in with you. My heart dropped. Their house was sold. I hadn't heard a word. I called Ethan immediately. He didn't answer. I called again. And again. Finally, hours later, he texted. Busy. Can't talk right now. Everything's fine. Everything's fine? That night, I couldn't sleep. I dug through old emails, bank statements, anything I could find. I hadn't seen a photo of my parents in over 2 years. I didn't even know where they lived. The next morning, I bought a one-way ticket back to the US. I didn't tell Ethan. I needed to see for myself. And I had no idea what I was walking into. The flight home felt endless. 8 hours of turbulence, followed by customs delays, and a 2-hour drive from JFK to my hometown in upstate New York. My mind raced the entire time, a carousel of questions, fear, and a sickening feeling in my gut I couldn't shake. I didn't go to Ethan's place first. I went to the old house. Our family home. The one with the crooked mailbox Dad refused to replace because he said it had character. The one where Mom used to sit on the porch with a glass of iced tea and wave at every neighbor walking by, like she was the mayor of the block. When I pulled onto the street, I barely recognized it. The house was different. The hedges were trimmed too neatly. The front door was a sleek black instead of the peeling red I remembered. And the porch swing, Dad's favorite spot, was gone. And the car in the driveway wasn't ours. I parked across the street and sat in the rental car for a while, just staring. A young couple came out, laughing, carrying groceries. I watched them unlock the door and disappear inside, into the home I thought still belonged to my parents. I couldn't breathe. I got out and walked up to the house anyway. Knocked. The woman who answered looked confused, a little guarded. Hi, sorry to bother you, I said. I used to live here. My name's Jack. I'm just trying to figure out where my parents went. Her eyes softened. Oh, you're the son? I blinked. You know them? She nodded. A bit. Your brother handled the sale. Said they were moving to an assisted living place a few towns over. That was over a year ago, I think. Did he say which one? She shook her head. No, sorry. He just said they wanted to downsize. But they didn't come in person. He did everything. The place was empty when we moved in. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Ethan hadn't said a word to me about selling the house. About moving them. About anything. I thanked the woman and left. Sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel for what felt like forever. Then I drove to Ethan's place. It was almost 9 p.m. when I got there. His house was bigger than I remembered. Newly painted, a luxury car in the driveway. The lawn was immaculate. Too immaculate for someone too busy to answer his phone. I rang the doorbell. Heard footsteps. The door creaked open. Ethan stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. Jack? I forced a smile. Hey, big brother. Surprise. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared. Then finally, he said, "You shouldn't be here." Those 4 words chilled me to the bone. I pushed past him into the foyer. Where are Mom and Dad, Ethan? He closed the door slowly behind me. Didn't answer. I turned around to face him. I went to the house. It's gone. Sold. Some woman said you moved them. So I'll ask again, where are they? He looked down at the floor, jaw tight. It's complicated. No, I snapped. It's not. You told me not to worry. You said everything was fine. I trusted you. They're safe, he finally said, voice low. But it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you disappeared them and never told me a damn thing. He rubbed his face like he was trying to wake himself from a nightmare. You want answers? He asked. Yes. Fine. But not here. I frowned. Why not? He glanced toward the hallway, toward the back of the house. Because she can't know you're here. She? He didn't answer. That's when I heard the voice. Soft. Curious. Ethan? Who was at the door? A woman appeared. Young. Blonde. Mid-20s, maybe. She was holding a baby. I froze. Ethan's voice cracked. This is my wife, and our son. Wife? Son? I didn't even know he was dating someone. What the hell was going on? I stared at the child in her arms, and something inside me screamed that this was only the beginning of what he'd been hiding. I didn't say anything for a long time. Just stood there, eyes flicking between Ethan, his wife, and the child she held so effortlessly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like this was just any other Thursday night in a perfectly normal family home. Except it wasn't. Because I didn't even know this woman existed. I didn't know Ethan had a child. And I definitely didn't know why he'd sell our childhood home and move our parents without telling me a word. Nice to meet you, I finally said, my voice robotic. She smiled politely. You must be Jack. I forced a nod. Yeah. That's me. Ethan cleared his throat. Can we talk, privately? She looked between us, concerned. Everything okay? Yeah, baby, everything's fine, Ethan said quickly. Just catching up. She hesitated, then took the baby down the hall, glancing back once before disappearing into a room. As soon as the door shut, I turned to Ethan. What the hell is going on? He motioned toward the kitchen. Come on. Let's sit. I followed him reluctantly. The kitchen was spotless. Granite countertops. Stainless steel appliances. A fruit bowl that looked like it belonged in a magazine. He poured 2 whiskeys and slid one toward me. "You never liked whiskey," I muttered. "I do now," he replied. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, "Start talking." He took a sip, then stared into his glass like the answers were floating at the bottom. "After you left for Singapore," he began, "things got complicated." "What does that mean?" "Dad's dementia got worse. Fast. He started forgetting names, faces, where he was. Then he had a fall. Broke his hip. That was the tipping point." I nodded slowly. "Why didn't you tell me any of this? You were starting your life. Half a world away. What was I supposed to do? Call and say, 'Hey, everything's falling apart, come fix it'?" "Yes," I said firmly. "That's exactly what you should have done." He shook his head. "You don't get it. Mom begged me not to burden you. Said you finally had your shot. She didn't want to ruin it for you. So instead, you moved them without telling me? Sold the house behind my back?" "I had to," he snapped. "We couldn't afford the mortgage and the assisted living bills. I used my own savings to cover the difference. I made decisions, Jack. Because someone had to." I stared at him, jaw tight. "Where are they now?" "In a private care facility 2 towns over," he said. "It's a good place. Quiet. Clean. They're well taken care of." "You couldn't have picked up the phone?" I asked. "1 call, Ethan. 1 email." He looked genuinely torn. "At first, I didn't want to worry you. Then, I didn't know how to explain it. I figured you'd come back eventually. And when you did, I'd walk you through everything. I didn't expect you to just show up." I sat back, trying to breathe through the anger pulsing in my chest. But there was something else. Something still gnawing at me. "That woman," I said slowly. "Your wife. Who is she?" Ethan hesitated. "We met 2 years ago. After Mom and Dad moved." "And the kid?" He nodded. I frowned. "So, you started a whole new life. Got married. Had a child. And you didn't even mention it to me?" I didn't think it mattered. That line hit me like a slap. "Didn't matter?" I echoed. "I'm your brother." He looked away. I stood, the chair scraping loudly against the tile. "Take me to them." "Jack." "No," I cut him off. "Now. I want to see them with my own eyes." He exhaled. "Fine. Tomorrow morning. Visiting hours start at 10. I nodded, grabbing my coat. But as I walked toward the door, I noticed something odd. A locked door at the end of the hall. Thick, reinforced. It didn't match the rest of the house. And there was a keypad lock on it. "What's that?" I asked, pausing. Ethan stiffened. "Storage. Just tools and junk." "Since when do you need a keypad for tools?" "It's nothing," he said quickly. "Let it go." But I didn't. Because his voice shook, just slightly. And suddenly, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was afraid. That night, I couldn't sleep. Even in the guest room, under clean sheets and soft lighting, something felt wrong. I kept replaying that moment in the hallway, the way Ethan's whole demeanor shifted when I asked about the locked door. The way his voice trembled. The look in his eyes. It wasn't just surprise. It was fear. I waited until I heard the last creak of the floorboards and the faint sound of his bedroom door closing. Then I counted the seconds. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Until the house was silent, except for the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. I crept out of bed. The hallway was dimly lit, the only light coming from the nightlight in the baby's room. I walked past it, slowly, toward the locked door at the end. It was matte black. Solid. Industrial, almost. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. I tried the handle. Locked, of course. Then I looked at the keypad. 4 digits. I thought about trying random combos, birthdays, anniversaries, but I knew Ethan wouldn't make it that simple. I crouched down and examined the edges. There was dust on the floor, except for one small square where the baseboard was cleaner than the rest. A floorboard. I slipped my fingers underneath and pulled. It creaked, but lifted. Inside was a small box. Metal. I opened it. Inside were papers, insurance, receipts, old letters, and a worn-out sticky note. 7 to 1, 9 to 3. I punched it into the keypad. Beep. Click. The lock disengaged. I hesitated, heart pounding. My body screamed at me to stop. But my curiosity was louder. I pushed the door open. It led to a staircase. Wooden, old, the kind you find in basements that haven't seen sunlight in decades. I flicked the light switch. A single bulb buzzed to life overhead, casting long, twisted shadows down the steps. I descended. The air was musty. Cold. I could hear the faint hum of something mechanical, an old fridge, maybe. The stairs creaked with every step. At the bottom was a basement, but it didn't look like any basement I'd ever seen. The walls were lined with shelves. Labeled bins. Dozens of them. Some marked with years. Some with initials. It looked organized, almost too organized. Like someone had been keeping records. But records of what? I opened one of the bins. It was full of photos. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Photos of our parents. Photos of me. Photos of Ethan. Some were from childhood. Others were recent. Too recent. One of them was me getting off the plane just yesterday. Another was from my apartment in Singapore. What the hell? I opened another bin. It had printed emails. Texts. My texts. Things I'd sent years ago. Receipts from flights I'd booked. Copies of my resume. My LinkedIn profile. Medical records. I backed away. My skin was crawling. This wasn't storage. This was surveillance. Suddenly, I heard footsteps above me. Heavy. Slow. Then, the sound of the door creaking open. Jack? Ethan's voice. Tense. Sharp. I looked around, panicking. There was no other exit. No windows. No hiding places. Only the shelves and a workbench. So I did the only thing I could. I turned off the light and melted into the shadows. I heard his feet hit the stairs. One by one. Slow. Deliberate. My breath was shallow. My heart pounded so loud I thought he could hear it. He reached the bottom step. Then stopped. Silence. Total, terrifying silence. I could just barely make out his silhouette. He stood there for a moment. Then reached for the light switch. Click. Nothing. I'd flipped the breaker from the wall before hiding. He muttered something under his breath. Then turned and walked back up. As soon as I heard the door shut, I exhaled. I didn't wait. I took photos of everything. Every bin. Every folder. I stuffed one of the folders into my coat. Then I ran back up the stairs, careful not to make a sound. Back in my room, I locked the door and stared at the folder. Inside? A photo of me. Sleeping. In my apartment. Taken from inside the room. I sat on the bed, shaking. This wasn't just a lie. This was something darker. Bigger. And whatever it was. Ethan had gone to terrifying lengths to keep it hidden. I didn't sleep again. I couldn't. That image of me, peacefully asleep, unaware that someone had been there, inside my home, taking pictures, burned itself into my brain like a brand. My apartment in Singapore was locked. Always. I had security cameras in the hallway, keycard access, concierge at the front desk. I never saw anyone suspicious. No signs of forced entry. Nothing stolen. So how did he do it? How long had he been doing it? And why? When the sun finally began to rise, I was still sitting in the guest room chair, folder on my lap, mind racing. I kept expecting Ethan to knock, to demand the folder back, to call me out for breaking into his private space. But he didn't. Instead, I heard the smell of breakfast first, coffee, toast, bacon. Like it was any normal morning. Like nothing had happened. I stepped out into the hallway cautiously. Ethan stood in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, like he hadn't spent the previous night hiding a secret basement filled with photos of me. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Sleep okay?" He looked me right in the eyes. Like nothing was wrong. I forced a smile. "Yeah. A little jet lag, but I'll manage." We ate in silence. The whole time, I studied him. Not just his words or expressions, his movements, his tone, the way his eyes flicked toward my room like he was checking whether I'd found it. And I realized something chilling. He wasn't scared that I might know. He wanted me to know. After breakfast, I told him I was going to take a walk. Clear my head. He nodded, said he might take Ava to the park later. The moment I left the house, I called a private investigator. I'd used one years ago when a former business partner tried to screw me out of a startup deal. He owed me a favor. I explained the situation briefly, leaving out the part about the basement, just enough to get him interested. He agreed to run a deep background check on Ethan. Old addresses, financial records, employment history, everything. While I waited, I went to a coffee shop and opened the folder again. Tucked behind the photos was something else. A journal. It wasn't handwritten, it had been typed and printed out, but it read like one. Dozens of pages. And all of it, about me. Not just details. Emotions. Observations. Jack prefers to eat in silence when he's anxious. He scratches his thumb when he lies. He doesn't cry at movies but pauses them when the music swells, emotional regulation through control. I skimmed further. July 12th, watched him leave for the airport. Flight to Tokyo, gate 16A. He wore the same gray hoodie as usual. Picked up a sandwich from the same deli. Predictable. Easy. Every entry was like that. Precise. Cold. Clinical. Like I was a lab rat. And the worst part? It went years back. Way before I ever mentioned visiting. Way before he invited me. I was never invited. I was lured. That night, I didn't return to the house. I texted Ethan and told him a college friend had invited me to stay the night in the city. He responded with a thumbs up emoji. Like he didn't care. Or maybe like he knew exactly where I really was. Because when I got back to my hotel, there was something waiting for me at the front desk. An envelope. No name. No return address. Inside? A photo of me. Standing in the coffee shop that morning. And one line, printed on the back. "You're not the only one watching." I dropped the photo. My fingers were numb. I wanted to call the police. I should have called the police. But how do you explain this without sounding insane? My brother kept surveillance on me for years, then left a photo at my hotel desk as a message. Instead, I called the investigator. He answered on the first ring. "Jack, we need to talk." "Now." "What did you find?" He hesitated. "Ethan isn't who you think he is." My blood went cold. "What are you talking about?" "I ran everything. There's no record of your brother living at that address before 3 years ago. No job history. No medical history. And, Jack, this is the worst part. There's no birth certificate. No social. Nothing tying him to your family. Not even to you." I couldn't breathe. What are you saying? I don't think Ethan's your brother, Jack. I stood frozen in my hotel room, phone to my ear, mind blank. What do you mean he's not my brother? The PI's voice was low, urgent. I triple-checked. There's no official record of Ethan ever being born into your family. No hospital records, no school records, no legal trace of any shared guardian. I went all the way back through your parents' public documents. They only ever had one son. You. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. That made no sense. I remembered him from when we were kids. Shared bunk beds. Birthday parties. Family vacations. He was there. I'm telling you, the PI said. Something's wrong. Either this guy created an identity that mirrors someone who used to be in your life, or what? Or your memory isn't what you think it is. That last part hit me like a punch to the chest. I hung up. Pulled out my phone. Started going through every photo I could find that had Ethan in it. He was in them. Christmas photos. Graduation. Random hangouts. But something was off. In the older photos, he always looked slightly away from the camera. Like he didn't belong. Like he was inserted. I zoomed in on one from my high school graduation. My mom had her arms around me. Ethan stood to the side, smiling, but there was no shadow behind him. No hand on his shoulder. He wasn't even looking at the lens. And then I noticed something even worse. The date stamp. That photo was taken a year before I met the person I thought was Ethan. I dug deeper. Opened a backup drive I hadn't touched in years. Found an old photo from our supposed trip to Yellowstone. The metadata said edited. I opened it in Photoshop and looked at the layers. One of them was titled Ethan.png. My stomach dropped. Was I going crazy? Had he been faking his way into my life? Or was I remembering someone who never existed? And then the question hit me like a hammer. Who the hell is this man? I couldn't go back to the house. I couldn't even stay in the hotel. I packed a bag and booked a red-eye back to the States. Told the airline it was a family emergency. I didn't even tell the PI. I just ran. But I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being followed. At the airport, I saw a man sitting at my gate, reading a newspaper, same coat, same posture, same profile as someone I'd seen outside the coffee shop 2 days earlier. When I boarded the plane, he didn't follow. But when I landed in New York, there he was. On the same terminal bench. No luggage. Just watching. I went straight to my parents' old house, where I grew up. The photo albums were still there. I dug through them, searching for childhood pictures, birthdays, holidays, anything. And that's when I found the real Ethan. A boy. Thin, awkward, brown hair and freckles. He looked nothing like the man I knew today. I flipped to the last photo of him. A funeral. Casket closed. A small headstone. Ethan Callahan. 1988 to 1997. He died when I was 10. I dropped the album. Sat back against the wall. The man in Singapore wasn't my brother. He never was. He was pretending. But why? And how did he know so much? Then I remembered the journal. The one he kept on me. The way he described my behaviors like a subject. Like a project. This wasn't obsession. This was a study. I pulled out my phone and opened the last email I got from him before I flew to Singapore. It was short. Just a quote. Family is just proximity and repetition. Get close enough, long enough, and anyone will believe you belong. No name. No context. I suddenly remembered what was written on the back of that photo from my hotel. You're not the only one watching. And I realized. I was never the subject. I was the control. The end.